So if you're unhappy in one newspaper town with the homogeneity of editorial opinion, start a newspaper.
Well, not just start a newspaper.
How easy is it to start a newspaper?
Probably not very easy, but it is an option. But there's other options like just because there's one newspaper doesn't mean that's the only publication available in that town. Like for example, there's the San Francisco Chronicle and whatever Free Press.
Yeah, there are a bunch of other papers. So that means that Red Lion is correct and Tornillo is correct. Well, I think the only way that the two cases can be reconciled, I mean, here's Red Lion saying broadcasters have to give an attacked person airtime, free airtime, to respond to the attack. And the court is saying in the next breath, newspapers do not have to, they're protected by the First Amendment, give space for a right of reply to a person attacked. The only way to reconcile those cases is by saying that the difference in the medium, the differences in the characteristics of the medium, justify that different result. And it's certainly true that there's no spectrum scarcity with regard to newspapers. Is that all it takes? You come out completely differently? Tina? Mm-hmm. That's certainly true and an important factor in Red Lion. It's a little paradoxical, isn't it, that the existence of government regulation justifies government regulation, or the history of government regulation makes it permissible for government to continue or to extend government regulation. But certainly that was a factor in Red Lion. The continuing validity of Red Lion, of course, is up in the air at this moment with the FCC's indecency policy being under submission in the Supreme Court. And this is jumping just slightly ahead of where we are, but you may have noticed that when that indecency policy was before the Supreme Court in 2009, Justice Thomas wrote an opinion calling into question Red Lion and Pacifica, and basically saying, if I have the chance, I'm going to vote to overrule those decisions. So what's Pacifica? Pacifica is the fount of the FCC's indecency regulation policy. The FCC has had the authority to regulate indecency, obscenity, indecency, that was Miami Herald, and profanity on the airwaves. And it didn't really do anything about indecency until the Pacifica case in 1978. And that involved George Carlin, the comedian and satirist, and what people usually call his 730 words monologue. And what happened was that he recorded this live monologue before an audience in which he discussed the words that you can't say on the airwaves, that the FCC considers indecent on the airwaves. And he ridiculed the whole thing. And you're going to hear what he had to say. But he identified the 730 words you can't say: fuck, shit, piss, cocksucker, motherfucker, cunt, and something else. And he exhaustively goes through each of these and analyzes their where they came from, their source, and what they mean today, how different contexts are used, and so on. And some man driving his kid home from school in the afternoon kid flipped the station on the radio, and George Carlin's monologue came on. And here is what he heard. During this thing, by the way, Carlin is up on stage. He is somebody comes out and says, "Hey, you just won an Emmy." So in case you're wondering what that's about, that's what he's saying. You don't like to hear dirty words, you better cover your ears.
Tell them back to you if you want. Listen to rub-a-doo. Then I was thinking about curse words and swear words, and cuss words and words you can't say, you're not supposed to say all the time. Because words, people are into words, they want to hear your words. Some guys like to record your words and sell them back to you if you can. Listen to the telephone, write down what words you say. The guy used to be in Washington, knew that his phone was tapped, used to answer, "Fuck Hoover." Yes, go ahead. Okay. And I was thinking one night about the words you couldn't say on the public airwaves. The words you definitely couldn't say, ever. Because I heard a lady say bitch one night on television. That was cool. Like she was talking about, the bitch is the first one you ought to say, and the later Johnny. All right. And bastard you can say, and hell and damn. So I had to figure out which ones you couldn't, and ever. And it came down to 7, but the list is open to amendment. In fact, has been changed by now. A lot of people pointed things out to me, and I noticed some myself. The original 7 words were shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Those are the ones that will curve your spine, grow hair on your hands, and maybe even bring us, God help us, peace without honor. What a burden. And then the first thing that we noticed was that the word fuck was really repeated in there because the word motherfucker is a compound word. It's another form of the word fuck. If you want to be a purist, it can't be on the list of basic words. Also, cocksucker is a compound word, and neither half of that is really dirty. The word to have sucker, that's merely suggestive. And the word cock is a halfway dirty word, 50% dirty half the time, depending on what you mean by it. Remember when you first turned like in 6th grade, you used to giggle, "On the cock road 3 times. Hey, the cock 3 times. It's in the Bible. Cock is in the Bible." The first time you heard about cockfight, remember? What? No, it's chickens, you know. Then you had the 4-letter words from the old Anglo-Saxon fame, shit and fuck. The word shit is an interesting kind of word, in that the middle class has never really accepted it and approved it. They use it like crazy, but it's not really okay. It's still a rude, dirty, kind of gushy word. They don't like that. What they say, like a lady now in a middle class home, you'll hear most of the time she says it as an expletive. You know, it's out of her mouth before she knows. She says, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." If she drops something, "Oh, the shit and the broccoli, shit." Thank you.
He gets the Emmy.
Shit. I won the Grammy, man, for the Grammy album. Isn't that great? That's good. That's good, man. That's sweet. That's sweet. Thank you. Thank you, man. Hey! Can I have a shirt? Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Thank for that and for the Grammy, man, because that's based on people liking it, man. Yeah, that's okay, man. I let that go, man. Got my Grammy out of my head, man. So, now the word shit is okay for the man. At work you can say it like crazy, mostly figuratively. Get that shit out of here, will you? I don't want to see that shit anymore. I can't cut that shit, buddy. I've had that shit up to here, and I think you're full of shit myself, man. You don't know shit from Shinola, you know that? I always wondered how the Shinola people felt about that kind of stuff. Hi, I'm the new man from Shinola. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Hi. Oh, I don't know whether to shit or wind my watch. Oh, this shit is going to hit the fan. You're like a brick shit house. Oh, he's up shit street. He's at it. I'm sorry. Hot shit, holy shit, tough shit, eat shit. Shit-eating grin. Oh, whoever thought that was ill?
You get the idea. It goes on for, you heard about half of it, and he goes through all of the words. Anyway, the father complained to the FCC about the KPF, it wasn't KPFA, whatever the Pacifica station call letters were, it was on the East Coast, having aired this indecent material at a time when children would be in the audience. And the FCC issued an administrative sanction against the Pacifica station for violating the indecency regulation. It was just a slap on the wrist. There was no fine, and they didn't take away the station's license. But it was a sanction for having aired something indecent under the FCC's regulation that prohibited broadcasters from airing language or material that depicts or describes in terms patently offensive as measured by contemporary community standards for the broadcast medium, sexual or excretory activities or organs. That was the FCC's regulation that was enforced. The Pacifica appealed the FCC's sanction, and the case went to the Supreme Court, with the Pacifica station arguing that the FCC could not, consistently with the First Amendment, prohibit airing indecent material on radio or television if the indecent material were not obscene. We're not talking about obscenity here. We'll revisit the Miller versus California factors for obscenity Thursday, but take it for granted that what George Carlin's monologue was not obscenity. Didn't appeal to prurient interest in any way, and probably does have significant literary, artistic, maybe political value. So it wasn't obscene, and the Pacifica station contended in the Supreme Court that prohibiting indecency was not allowed under the First Amendment. The opinion was written by Justice John Paul Stevens when he was fairly new on the court. I think, and as I say in the book, I think he regrets having written that opinion. Everything he said about the First Amendment since then tends to minimize that opinion, and I think he probably wouldn't write it if the issue were before him again. But he wrote this opinion in Pacifica that relied to a considerable extent on the Red Lion case as precedent for the proposition that broadcast of all the media has the least First Amendment protection. It is the least protected medium of communication, least protected by the First Amendment, and emphasized the characteristics of the broadcast medium that contribute to its not having full First Amendment protection. That is, it's an intrusive medium. Here it jumps out in the man's car, comes into your home. It's intrusive. And it is pervasive. It's every place, at home, at work, in the car, at school, if you want it to be. And it is uniquely accessible to children. Real easy for children to get access to what's on the radio or the television. Then Justice Stevens looks at the character of the speech involved here, the Carlin monologue, indecency in general, and says that indecent speech lies at the periphery of First Amendment concerns. This is not core political speech that commands great First Amendment protection. This is at the periphery of First Amendment concerns. And then Stevens points out that what the FCC did was simply an administrative sanction. It was not a criminal sanction. Nobody was going to jail because they aired this is indecent material, and nobody could. There wasn't even a fine, and there wasn't any action taken against the station's license. It was simply a reprimand. And given all those circumstances, limited First Amendment protection, the nature, intrusive, pervasive, accessible of the medium, the character of the speech here, and the not very serious sanction that was involved, the court affirmed the FCC sanction against the Pacifica station, and that's what launched the campaign against indecency by the FCC that was ramped up significantly during the administration of George W. Bush. So that's where we'll pick up on Thursday and finish with all of the FCC stuff before we get to the internet.